I mean, I truly have never had a standing ovation before in my life. Where's Jeff? Jeff, thank you for that. That was awesome. I'm ready to go home at that. But this is great. I want you to think back about the moment that you first said, I want to pursue that career. If you're working for a nonprofit, think back to that moment. And what was it that caused you to step into the current line of work? What is it that caused you? What were some of the things, hopes, dreams, what caused you to step out? I want to hear from a few of you. What was it that caused you to step out in this work? Yeah.
Seeing need.
Seeing need. Yeah. And saying, let's do something about it. Good. What else? A couple more.
My children.
Your children. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Personal experience. Good. Where God wanted me to go. Good. Second chance at life. Yeah. Wow. Breast cancer survivor and then giving back. I love that. You know what I find so interesting? None of you got into this line of work because you love thinking about board governance. I didn't hear that from any of you. And yet my experience is that all of us, as we step out, as we do this good work, eventually we realize, wow, this board stuff, it matters. It matters a lot. And your participation in the first session was awesome. I am so glad that I saw you here. I'm already feeling engaged on that. But my story is I got involved because I heard and then saw the power of capital, investment, the power of community in places around the world. And I have spent my career trying to figure out how we invest in entrepreneurs, provide capital training, and we are a faith-based, a Christ-centered organization and doing it with local churches around the world. And it has been an incredible career. Started in Cambodia, moved to Rwanda, then Zimbabwe, and now we work in 20-plus countries around the world and trying to figure out how we build a team, how we build a global mission, and how we invest in the dreams of families around the world. This has been an absolutely amazing journey that we have been on. And as we do this, I also have this habit of writing. I spend a lot of time on planes and trains, and I love the writing process. So this is my way of processing. It's my way of learning. I have never written about anything that I knew the answer. I write about things that are curious, challenges that I have. And Jeff asked me to share a little bit about board governance, and I can tell you the reason why I started thinking and writing about board governance is because I am convinced that it is really important and it is really hard to get this right. In fact, I was at an organization with a bunch of nonprofit leaders, and we were all invited to bring our biggest challenge, our biggest struggle, and as we gathered together, we were going to help each other kind of figure out how do we problem solve, how do we help each other with the big challenges that we're facing. And what surprised me, as one individual shared and then the other, the theme was boards. The theme was governance. In fact, when we asked this question, what are your greatest challenges? 75% had something related to board. And some of them said, my board is too involved. How do I get them out of operations? And some said, you know what? I am trying to figure out how I engage my board. They just don't seem engaged. And this is a challenging issue, and it is extremely important. And my question is this: why? Why is board governance so difficult to get right? Turn to your neighbor real quick. If you're online, enter in the chat. But why is board governance so difficult to get right? 1 minute, come up with a quick list. And I know that was a short minute, but I'd love to hear. We come back together. I'd love to hear. All right, I almost don't want to stop the conversation on that. That is good. But as we come back together, and I forgot I was supposed to be giving away prizes today. So I'd love to hear a few people that would share. What is it? What is it that makes this board conversation so difficult? And I enjoy writing books. I haven't figured out how to sell them, but I have figured out how to give them away. So here we go. So yes.
I would say some of the challenges come from me that I see are like people that they want to just help, right?
Yeah.
They don't really know what it
Right.
means to be a board member. And like you said, either they're overly engaged, they think they
Yes.
work for the organization, or they just talk about the organization.
Come on, that is so good.
That's it.
Good heart, good desire, and no training, no ability to figure it out. Yeah.
I think I think this morning, gentleman talked about quicksand. And I think
Yes.
we all find ourselves in that place.
Yeah.
A lot of it is stewarding the board members, having the time to appropriately steward them, because you just asked us
Yes.
why we are involved, right? Well, it's the same thing for the board
Exactly.
members, and it's not a one-size-fits-all.
Yes.
So how do I engage a board member who is sitting on the board for whatever reason? And that's different for why
Yes.
they're sitting on the board.
Yes, the quicksand, different motivations, and the ability.
The vision.
Yes.
And that how where they are, they can still make an impact.
Yes. Yes. Good. Two more. Yes. Way back there, and then right next. You, both of you. Yeah. Distracted. They don't wake up every day thinking about, I can't wait to help the organization today. Good. Yes. Alignment. Yes. Yes. Yeah, alignment. Has anyone had the experience that they like someone more before they're a board member than after? Am I allowed to say that? I'm just kidding. Is this recorded on that? I love my board. I do. I love my board. All right, one more on this side. And yes. 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 Yes, the specific skills. Yes. Yes, yes, so good, so good. And I saw a lot of other great conversation. My guess is we have a list. This is a complex relationship. It is a complex relationship. And I just want to tell you kind of my challenge. Whenever I face a challenge, I use it as an excuse to say, I want to talk to the smartest people that I can and to figure out from others that are further and farther along on the journey and to say, what is it? What is it that leads to a great board in relationship? What is it? What is it? And I'm not going to share all that we learned on that, but I'm going to share just a few themes that we heard again and again. And I love a simple 2x2. Ryan and I both went to the same graduate school, and there were a lot of these 2x2s that we saw in that. But this idea of two different ideas then on the same piece. And what we see is it's possible to have a board that has high engagement or low engagement, right? This ability, they're in. Like this is related to your question of like, are we spending the time? Are we engaged? And then there's this also question of high trust and low trust. This ability to have, is the base of this relationship one of mutual trust, mutual respect? And we can think about what it looks like. If we're in low trust, low engagement, what do you think that looks like? Think of your board, right? Low trust, low engagement. I mean, maybe we just call that the dysfunctional quadrant right there, right? Not really engaged, not trusting. That's like we're just out. But it's also possible, what does it look like for a high trust but low engagement board? Like, I trust you, you're doing great. What does that look like? If there's high trust but then not real engagement in the important issues, what does that look like? Yeah, getting nothing done. Yeah, right. To me, that's almost like the rubber stamp, just this level of passivity, like, you're doing great, keep going, and when's our next board meeting? I might be busy that day on that. Yeah, that's not what we want, but also, what do you think it looks like to have high engagement but low trust? What does that quadrant look like? I love the head shake, and you're like, that is not a good one to have. That is a challenge. We're like totally engaged, but oh man, that just leads to factions. It just leads to lack of health. It leads to the micromanaging and multiple ideas. But where I want to talk about is, what does it look like for us to be in that upper right quadrant? Like seriously, what does it look like to us actually have a foundation level of trust, and then to also have a level of right and appropriate engagement? And I just want to say, if you're dealing with some challenges in your board situation, I want to speak a word of hope. It is possible to get there, but it takes intentionality, it takes training, it takes work to get there. Good boards don't just happen. They require intentionality. They require work. But let's talk about, how do we get there? How do we get to that upper right quadrant of having healthy governance? And the first piece that we heard again and again from individuals, it all starts with the mission. And it is the mission over me. It is saying, I am not the most important. My opinion is not the most important. We have a North Star to go after, and that North Star is the mission. And the boards that have that healthy governance, everyone is clear why they're there. Every single person is clear of what the mission is, and everything else is subordinate to that mission. Not my opinions, not my perspectives. It is all underneath that North Star. And I love this. The definition of a North Star. What is the North Star? Why was that helpful? Before we had phones and GPSs in our phone, why was it helpful? Direction, exactly. And what was it about the North Star? When everything else is moving, what would happen if we could find the North Star? That's what would happen. It would actually give us that one piece. The North Star appears to stay steadfast as a fixed point in the sky as other stars circle it. How many of you feel like there are other things that are circling around in your orbit, other issues, important issues? And this, to me, is the starting point. Do we know what we're going after? Do we have a clear North Star? And it might be an interesting exercise for you, as you're having conversations with your board members, to just periodically say, hey, why are we doing this? Not why are you doing this? Why are we doing this? And is there consistency? Is there alignment of what that North Star of mission actually is? I like how Simon Sinek, he does this contrast between me thinking and we thinking. And he says this, he says, to ask what's best for me is finite thinking. That's not where movements happen. That's not where impact happens. But he goes on to say, to ask what's best for us is infinite thinking. That is thinking beyond our tenure. That is thinking beyond our moment. That is thinking about, how do we advance the mission in significant ways, even beyond our one particular moment. And so how do we do this? How do we do this? What are ways to remember that the mission matters most? Turn to your neighbor, 30 seconds. In a practical way, how, as a board of directors, might you constantly come back to that North Star? How do you remind each other about the mission and that matters most? 30 seconds. Turn to a neighbor real quick. I hate to break up the conversation, but let's come back together. I would love to hear a couple ideas. How do we remember that the mission matters most? Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes, I love that last point of regularly inviting the board to see the mission. We wrote a book called Mission Drift, so that seems to be an appropriate one, talking about mission on that. Yes.
I said also, when you're having meetings or not, to make sure that you have mission moments and to share those at the board.
So good.
Say why we're doing this and how you are intersecting your life in the work of the organization as well.
I love that. The practical way of having mission moments, those moments to keep coming back to the mission. Yeah. Share the highlights. That's it. Let them see the work in action. So good. Real simple, real practical. Yeah. What? That's so good. Having a ritual at the beginning of the meeting, that is so good. Every single meeting, we start with a reminder, this is why we do what we do. That is so, so good. We find that it's challenging in our work, so we work around the world. Difficult when we gather together as a board, but we make it a priority to go and see the work with some sort of regularity, to be reminded of who we are. And in the interim moments, to start out with a story about what this is all about. Focus on that mission. Focus on that at the beginning. I love that. My hope for you, again, as we're jumping into some of these things, that you might just take one thing away from our session today. So maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Start every single time we get together with a realignment and reminder of why we do what we do. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Good. Number 2 on that. So first is mission over me. Second one is this. It is clarity, not confusion. Now, how many of you would say that you have clarity about what your role is and what the board's role is? How many of you would say that is crystal clear?
I don't know about Crystal.
I don't know if you, from my standpoint, there were like 4 hands up, and then I said crystal, and it was like, oh, maybe not quite crystal clear on that. But this is so important.
Whether the board member has a clear view of what their role is.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh, the hand just went down a little further on that. But
We have shared that with them.
yes.
Now whether or not they do it.
Yes.
So that's what I mean by clarity, right?
Yes. No, that's good. That's good. I'm talking about more than just it's in a manual somewhere. I'm talking about in the day-to-day, in the operations, is there clarity about what your role is and what the board's role is? And if there is not, may I suggest there is going to be confusion that will happen. Because it constantly is this my role or is that theirs? Where is my responsibility end? Where does theirs begin on that? And I think back to my days in college with my soccer coach. And loved playing soccer, loved the ability. But there was never a moment when Coach Leighton Shoemaker jumped onto the field and started playing in a game. That never happened. But I assure you, he was very vocal and engaged in setting some of the strategy. But there was no question the role of the coach is different from the role of the player. And there was never ambiguity. Zero ambiguity. And I knew it was not my job to suggest substitutions or other things. I knew the lines of responsibility, and that for any team is required. And in a similar way, I think there is a lot of ambiguity about what your role is and what the board's role is. And a lot of times it relates to decision-making autonomy. What decisions need to be elevated to the board and what decisions do you on your own have the ability to make? And if that is not clear, there will be challenges down the road. Not there might be, there will be. Because what's going to happen? The board is going to say, you didn't consult that, and we should have been consulted. Or you might think, I can't believe the board is speaking in. This feels like micromanaging to me. This doesn't feel like it is helpful at all. Having that clarity. So what is the job description? And I love how this morning when Mark Miller was talking about culture, he's like, there's no one set. And I would say in a similar way, it actually doesn't matter what you have in that as much as it matters that you have it and that it is clear. And that the board chair in particular regularly reminds the board and regularly reminds everyone if we are getting out of bounds with that. So super simple. This is like the most basic. If you're looking for a place to start, I guess the first thing that I would say, board job description. What is it, the board? What is it? And for me, it is all about protect the mission. Ultimately, the board is the guardian of the mission. The board is responsible to say this organization stays true to what it was created to do. Protect the mission. The second thing is to hire and evaluate, not just hire and hope for the best. Hire and evaluate the individual that reports to the board. That is absolutely. And then the third piece is there is this benefit of having a group of engaged people that have full invitation to ask some really good and tough questions on that. And it is a sign of love for the mission and for you as a leader if they are invited and regularly say, help us see what we can't see. Because sometimes we're so close, it helps to have them with a little more distance to say, hey, what about or what if? We frame all of our board meetings around questions, key questions, saying in this board meeting, we want to figure out what it looks like to wrestle with these a couple very important strategic decisions. And please ask the tough questions. We need it. And if that's true, then what's the CEO's job description? To me, it is like implement that mission, build the team, create the culture. I promise you I had this written before the session this morning, but I would have edited it had I not on that. But build the team, create the culture, implement the mission. Like now that we have clarity of who we are, we have clarity about where we're going, let's go on that. And I find a significant difference between governance and operations. Governance, this question of setting direction, important big picture, but then having the freedom and flexibility for the management team to then implement that mission, getting into operations on that. And again, a great gift is a board chair or for you individually to periodically say, is this within scope? And I can tell you, and if anyone wants, by the way, any of Hope's board manuals, anything that we have, it's all available for free. We have a part of our website where just anything is available for free. So if you want to see how we do it, it clarifies percent budget that I'm allowed to change without getting board approval. It gets really granular in some of the pieces, and it has brought so much freedom to understand now what is within scope and what do I need board approval. So anything that we can do to help, I'd be happy to share that with all of you. And then one other important piece on this when it comes to board is the difference between the collective board and an individual board member. Why is that really important to understand? How much authority does an individual board member have when they are meeting with you and giving their advice? I wouldn't state it quite like that. But here's why this is so important. Early in my career, when I'm trying to lead Hope International, what I found early on, I didn't understand this governance stuff. And I would have one board member that would provide wonderful feedback on a particular issue that they were very excited about. And then I would have a conversation with another board member, and it would be a different perspective. And I felt like I had Medusa as who I'm reporting to on that. This idea of having multiple individuals, and it just added so much confusion. Yeah. Yep. Yes. Correct. Correct. Okay, this is a very important word that you just used. A very, very, very. They are subject experts. They are on the board because they care about the mission. It would be foolish to not engage them for their wisdom and influence. The difference, though, is when they are giving their perspective, what I have experienced is that even though they have that expertise and experience, when they are an individual, they are not having the ability to speak on behalf of the full board. And this moment for me was when a board member, this moment I can tell you exactly where I was. I can tell you exactly where I was. I was taking a walk and I was feeling a huge challenge. And he said this, Tim said this, he said, Peter, remember, you don't report to me or any other individual members of the board. You report to the collective board, which has authority to determine goals and performance metrics only when it is gathered. Approach other one-on-one conversations with board members as though they are serving as an advisor, not a supervisor. I cannot tell you how much freedom this conversation gave to me. I cannot tell you how much weight that took off, because then it allowed me to engage the expertise. What do you think we should do? Tell me what your experience is. Tell me how we should deal with this. And then if there's something that does require a decision, to say, let's elevate that to the full board. And then when the full board, that is when it is binding. That is when they have the collective authority to tell me what to do on that. And that absolutely is so critical. But understanding this difference between individual conversations and the board when it is gathered and the board when it is in session, that is when it has authority to do the work of governance. And that is so helpful. Yeah. Correct. Absolutely. Yeah, that is actually the board's responsibility to hire, evaluate, and I didn't put on that because it's depressing to me, but to also make a change if that is there. They are the ones that have that authority to hire and evaluate and terminate the person who reports to the board. So choose your board wisely on that. And we're going to get to that one. We're going to get to that just a minute. So to me, just real simple, plan of action. If you don't have this already, may you please give yourself the gift of clarity. May you please create a document with simple clarity of what it looks like to articulate your roles, your responsibilities, and what will require board approval. That takes away so much pain. That will take away so much anxiety if we get the job description clear and we keep coming back to that. Yeah, I sincerely mean this. Like we wrote a book called Rooting for Rivals. Like we actually believe we're all in this together. So anything that Hope has is open source, literally anything. So happy to share anything that would be helpful. Yeah. Great. Number 3 on that. So what was number 1? Mission over me. Number 2 was? Clarity, not confusion. Number 3, communication, not mystery. We wrote this little book on governance, and there's one thing that people quote more than any other because they say, Peter, you're crazy for including this. And I want to tell you why we include it. But I was living in Rwanda. Mount Nyiragongo erupted across the border in Goma. And my wife and I went to try and figure out how to do this response. And while we were there with the CEO of the organization who, while we're together, told me that he was going to be transitioning out of the organization. So we had time together, lots of time to unpack. And he said some things that just stuck with me. But one of the things that he said was, I was asking him, what did you learn? And he said, hands down, the number one thing that I am taking away from this time of leading this organization is that I did not communicate enough with the board of directors. And I said, how much of your time do you think you should have been spending with board members, with governance, with vision? And he replied, 25% of my time. And that's what I said too. I was like, that seems crazy to me. And I am not advocating for 25% of your time to engage. But for most of us, if we do our tracking, and I did this with myself, it was about 1% of my time that I was spending on the board. And I don't think it is 25, but I am convinced it's more than 1% of wisely investing in this. Because again, they're the guardians of the mission. If they don't know the mission, if they're not engaged, then how are they going to govern effectively in that? And so to me, it's this question of how do we engage the board, and what is the habit, what is the pattern of regular communication? Real simple for me right now is every month I give a really concise email to them. Here's what I'm thankful for. Here's what I'm concerned about. Here's where I really need your help. Simple, simple, and it has been so great to have that regular communication. And then we have 4 board meetings a year. In between those board members, I'm just picking up the phone and calling and having a conversation with them as well. Yeah. Yeah. It's great. That's so good. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So good. And it can feel like there's so many other pressing demands, but if we're not having time to engage the board, we might be missing out. Yeah.
Would that number change depending upon the organizational size and
Yes, for sure. And again, please hear everything that I'm saying as this is my experience. These are some principles, and have fun trying to figure it out for yourself on that. So, yeah.
You engage with all the board members or just like
Yeah.
the executive?
Yeah, all the board members. But we don't have a huge board on that. We have between 9 and 11 board members on that. And I like how William White says this. He says, the great enemy of communication is the illusion of it. So if you think you're communicating, not always are you on that. So again, we've only got a few more minutes before we go into kind of time of conversation. So I'm going to power through a couple more. But this might be another action step that you might take, is have you ever sat down and created your plan? Here is the way that I will communicate to the board of directors. Here's the frequency. Here's the way that I'm going to do it. And if you don't have a structure, if you don't have a plan, again, it just might be leading to some confusion that could be avoidable with the intentional practice of communication. Next, first who, then what from Jim Collins on that. But what I find so interesting is how many of you have a detailed process for your recruitment? This is Hope International's plan about how we get new people, the detailed conversations, the interview process, the way that you engage, what you're looking for. I mean, look at all this hours. We do a job post for 30 days, HR interview for 45 minutes, hiring manager, face-to-face interviews, and then post-interviews, and then we do reference checks. We got a whole plan. Wow.
But see, for board members?
No. This is my point. You just got to the punchline. This is what we do for staff. Now, do you want to see our board system? Hey, you want to join our board on that? That's isn't that crazy? We do all of these systems, all of these controls, and then it's like, yeah, I know someone. What's your name? Yeah, you want to be on a board? Yeah. You get a pulse. We got a pulse. We got someone. And so, what does that mean? That means that oftentimes when we actually show up in the boardroom, when we actually do it, you have no idea really who that person is. You have no idea really what kind of board member they're going to meet, and sometimes there are surprises on that. So I want to minimize surprises on that. I don't like that kind of surprise. I like a birthday party surprise. I like a Chick-fil-A sandwich surprise. I don't like that surprise on that. So the question is, what level of intentionality do we have? And are we taking time to get to know people? This is really important, before they know that they're being considered for a board role. Because if they think that they're being considered for a board role, it becomes really difficult to then backtrack. They're a supporter. We don't want to offend them. We'll win them over time. I just don't think that is the best way to make board decisions. So we have high level of intentionality before a candidate even knows that they're being considered for a board member. That has helped us so many ways. And we look for chemistry. Oh, for Q&A? Oh, that's the saddest thing that I've heard all day. We only have a couple more minutes. I thought we had till the Q&A. So we're going to go to Q&A right now. And I am going to... I'm just kidding. I'm just messing with you. I'm just kidding you. All right. Yeah, so, all right, we only got 5 minutes. What do you want to do? More content or Q&A? What do you want?
More content.
All right, here we go. We'll do 5 more minutes of content. So again, the action step. If your process is, hey, you want to join the board, great opportunity for improvement on that. I'm going to skip this one and just do one more here. But a key piece of the board of directors, and this is one that I think a lot of boards struggle with and a lot of leaders struggle, but if we believe it is mission over me, if we believe it is mission that matters, that we are actively thinking beyond our tenure. That takes a huge level of commitment to the mission. It takes a huge level of maturity. But I think for all of us, if you want to build a healthy organization that, as Simon Sinek says, is part of that infinite game, we got to think beyond ourselves. We got to think beyond our particular moment in time. And my experience is that very few organizations have a great handoff. Very few organizations. And part of the reason is because a lack of understanding that this is actually an important part of governance. It's an important part of preparation. I like how Wes Stafford says this. He says, the mission of an organization is never more vulnerable than during a transition in leadership. As much as a decade of focus, momentum, and direction can be lost in the season, the difference between a successful succession and failure can mean life or death for an organization. And then listen to his conclusion. Leaders and boards carry no greater responsibility than to shepherd well this passing of the baton. Given how important that is, my question is, how many organizations have a documented succession plan? According to Harvard Business Review, how many of them have a documented succession plan? We got 10%? Oh, I mean, you all are so depressing. It's 17% on that. So if you're part of that 17%, well done. If you're part of the 83, come on, here we go on that. But it's really interesting that maybe related to that, did you realize that the majority of leaders actually fail when they step into a role? And oftentimes, it's because it is last minute, it is not planned, it is not prepared. And I think for all of us, we want to be part of a mission that extends beyond us. So how is this possible? How is it to get this right? And that you're going to have to come back next year if I get invited back on that. But I would just encourage you on this. Think about what it looks like to plan and prepare beyond yourself as part of this healthy governance, because it is the board's role to think about that. And if you have questions about whether the board is the right group of people to make this decision, that is an indicator you should pay attention to. They are going to make this decision at some point. So how do we plan? How do we prepare? What's that? I don't know if it's on our website, but I'm happy to share. We have a short term. And then one real quick thing that I do is every January I give the board chair 5 names of people that would do a great job in my role. And then we have staff development plans for every level in the organization for succession plan on that. So every single person is actively creating their own succession plan with people identified if they get hit by the donut truck on the way home. Yep. Yeah. All right. I think we're out of time. Oh, we got 1 minute. I've got 4 books. Yes. Question. Who we got? Yes. Oh, no. Is that just waving? Oh, yeah. You can get a book. I mean, sure. We'll give books away for the last 1 minute on that. There we go. Yeah. Anything else on that? Sure. Yeah. All right. Here we go. Hey, there's a book. I feel like Oprah on that. So, what's that? Yep. Correct. Yeah. So I think, again, it's like the first piece is intentionality, and you have a current board of directors, right? So I think the first piece, we start with a board skill map of saying who are the types of people, because if you say who's going to be a great board member, sometimes that's hard to identify. So we look at a board skill map. We look at that board skill map based on when people are going to be rotating off the board. We have term limits. I'm a huge fan of term limits. We do 1-3-3 term limits. So initial board term is 1 year, followed by up to 2 3-year terms on that, which is super helpful on that. And then you start having conversations. We're looking for someone with this level of expertise and this particular piece, and then who knows someone, and then we involve our executive team as well as board to make board kind of nominations. And then again, it's not difficult to get to know someone without a board conversation. We're constantly having coffee, or we're constantly getting to know people, and it's just Let me get to know you. Tell me, you've been a supporter for a couple of years. I'd love to hear more of your story. Why does what we do resonate? Or you want to go see what we do? I'd love to show you what it is, and you can watch how they're interacting. So with a level of intentionality, it is possible. I'm like feeling like I need to end this, but I'm not going anywhere for a little bit. So if anyone wants to continue the conversation, I am happy to do it. But truly, if you go to Hope, you can shoot me an email, pgreer@hopeinternational.org, and we'll send board manual or point you to the link. Yeah.
Because you asked for a resource, I work with United.
Yeah.
We train individual
Awesome.
board members. We have a list of 3,100.
Great.
Looking for board members, let me know.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. United Way is a great resource. Not my kids. I don't know about your kids. No, I love my kids, but I think that's actually a really important piece. And there is, I would say, I wouldn't give like a yes or no. I would say a tread carefully of that on that. But yeah, hey, truly, if I could be of any help, love to do it. Blessings on the important work that you're doing in the world. Thanks. Yeah.
Two quick things.
Yeah.